Is purely about value. He sees the ability for the company to really unlock value over the last couple of years, most likely through the services side. They have 1 billion users globally of iOS devices, and I think that's what he's making a multi-year bet on. What changed my view, what is changing my view, is that, I've had a cautious view if you go back to November, because we saw the 6S was not selling as well. We saw production cuts in the supply chain, and we saw demand really slide, not only in the end of Q4, calendar Q4, but also during the March quarter, and that's obviously been reflected in the way the company guided for June. But now we're at the bottom in terms of units, and we're about to head into a meaningful product cycle. And because nobody really has a whole lot of, a handle on what the 7's going to offer, everybody's very negative because of what's occurred over the last 6 months.
Right.
What's exciting, though, is because the 7's actually is going to do well, but the 6S is going to drop in price. The 6 drops in price. You have this low-cost this low-cost SE device that's actually going to do well at the mid-tier, and they're even making the 5S still for some parts of the world. So Apple is going to actually do very well, I think, in the iPhone side in the back half.
Max, you're not a lone wolf when it comes to being bearish on Apple, sorry. Julian Robertson, we learned in a 13F, his Tiger Management liquidated its holdings in Apple at the same time. Why are you cautious on Apple right now?
So look, we also believe we can read the tape. Obviously, this is very cheap, especially if you look at the cash hoard and the revenue and the likelihood that they're going to have a good revenue for a while with a dividend and a huge buyback. So the sort of standard Graham-Dodd approach does push this name out. But we still have a lot of people who buy it for growth. I think that's who we're sort of starting to see, especially in the hedge fund community, exited 90 days ago, a la the 13F filings that we're seeing out there. Here's what we're worried about. Smartphone sales are dropping or turning negative. Marginal demand is mostly in the developing world and the less high GDP per capita portions of the developing world, places like Indonesia and India, where there's a lot of price sensitivity, and where places like Huawei and Lenovo and some of the low-cost Chinese makers are picking up market share. So we think that's pressure on Apple. We think it's a good company. We think it's undervalued, but we do think another major issue. We're cautious short-term because when a love affair as intense as the one between Wall Street and Apple ends, it's always bumpy, and you can't be friends right away.
And that was the right view. That was the right view 4 or 5 months ago. I absolutely agree. The difference now is that Apple has a product that is addressing a lot of those emerging markets, and most people don't know, as I said earlier.
It was also more valuable 4 or 5 months ago, though.
They're all still. That's fair. That's fair. No, and that's what I'm saying.
Right.
You have to turn at some point, Max, because things are actually going to be better for them over the next 6 months, and then Max will be on 4 or 5 months from now saying, "Oh, that was the turning point." And I think that's where we are right now with Apple.
I'll buy you a coffee. I'll buy you a coffee.